Now turn up.
What up, is Marcus Dynasty Dads? We have that DeAndre Swift signed jersey. All you have to do is be a subscriber for a chance to win. When we hit 2K, we'll be giving it away to one of you guys. We're doing mock draft Monday. We're going to be doing it all the way into Tuesday as well, because Tuesday we're going to be going through 13 through 24 through the same exact mock draft. We have some things that I guess I have been not necessarily even predicting, but I'm guessing will happen at the NFL draft here at the end of April when it comes to the wide receiver landing spots, when it comes to a specific player dramatically falling down the running back boards here, and how is that going to affect his draft capital. We'll be getting into that. So first of all, this is a Superflex rookie mock draft. And we're going to go into number one right off the bat. It is drafted. There was no running backs drafted in the first round. He was the first running back drafted in the second round, pick 38, Breece Hall, the New York Jets. This is a very common spot that I've seen him land. I could easily see him becoming a Jet, and Michael Carter going into that role of becoming more that pass down back. Think Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman roles. Michael Carter is going to go into the Tevin Coleman role, and you're going to see Breece Hall into that Devontae Freeman role. Of course, you're going to have a wide receiver drafted by the Jets in the first round, but you're going to have Zach Wilson. You're going to have Elijah Moore. You're going to have a decent offense, it looks like, as long as Zach Wilson can perform. But Breece Hall is going to be my number one pick in Superflex leagues, and this is pretty much a slam dunk. The only reason why Breece Hall wouldn't is if he ends up going absolutely to a horrible spot. Think Denver. Think Pittsburgh. Think Indianapolis Colts. Like, just something ridiculous, like where you go, that makes no sense, where they already have a cornerstone running back, and I just don't see NFL teams doing that, but you just never know. you don't know until the actual picks go through. Dallas, for example, wide receivers are a little different, but Dallas drafted CeeDee Lamb, and they had Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and we thought, hey, that's a weird situation to be a part of. So things can sometimes go a little awry. Number two, I got to find it on my sheet here. Oh, that's because he was the fifth wide receiver drafted off the board. And this is what I talked about Sunday, about a Green Bay or Kansas City receiver shooting up the boards. But Treylon Burks is the receiver that was drafted here, 128 to Green Bay. He is my number one wide receiver anyways. So he just gets concreted into this spot. Being a Green Bay wide receiver, I think this is a perfect fit for Green Bay. They want a big wide receiver, and you'll see that they drafted another wide receiver actually in the second round, which is, I think, what they have to do. Draft that bigger wide receiver, a Treylon Burks, a Drake London type, if they can get him, either at 22 or 28, and then draft that skilled inner part wide receiver, a Sky Moore, a David Bell, Wando Robinson, I'm trying to John Michie, somewhere along those lines, Jahan Dotson, like trying to draft one of those type of wide receivers either again in the first or later in the second round is going to be crucial for Aaron Rodgers, getting him some of those weapons, since Amari Rodgers didn't show anything last year, and they have literally no one coming back. So that is my number two pick. Number three is going to be Kenneth Walker, or as some people call him, Kenny Walker. And he goes to Houston here. This is very tempting. If you're number two and you're sitting between Treylon Burks for Green Bay or Kenneth Walker with Houston, I think that's not a bad spot for Kenneth Walker to be, considering that he's going to get a ton of volume. And we like volume in Dynasty. We want the more carries, the more catches that you possibly can get. Think Najee Harris type rookie year, because Najee Harris was not in a necessarily great offensive team with Big Ben falling apart, but he got a ton of volume. And maybe Kenneth Walker doesn't get as much as that, because who knows? There's always other running backs that Houston seems to attach onto that will take some sort of. He won't get 99% of the snaps like Najee, but if he gets 75-80% for Houston, and he gets the goal line work and everything like that, I think that's going to be very valuable. And Kenneth Walker is my 103 here in Superflex. Number four, and this is the jump. We talked about Kansas City, Green Bay. Which wide receiver is going to get the jump? And for me, now, some people might already have this wide receiver already jumped up into the top four, top five, but it is Jamison Williams, and he is being drafted by Kansas City at 121. Kansas City seems like if you're going to have a 4.2, let's just say 4.29, 4.30 speed by Jamison Williams on a Kansas City team that just lost Tyreek Hill, I mean, that's a match made in heaven. if somebody said, hey, I'm going to draft him number 2 overall, the only concern is his ACL and how he recovers through that. But if you watch the talent of him, he is a tier 1 talented wide receiver in this bunch. That ACL does worry that you're not going to get much of a rookie season from him. But after that, you could see that his value is going to jump. So you're really kind of just slow playing it until he actually gets on the field, which I think is going to be November, December. And maybe he doesn't become a player on the field in the 2022 season. There is totally a chance. ACLs have definitely advanced, but there are still players that it takes a full 12 months. And you're talking about a guy who got hurt in the national championship game. You're talking, again, almost the end of 2022. So you think of him as almost being a 2023 draft pick. And if your team cannot fit that kind of, like if you need a player now, then Jamison Williams is not going to be the player you need. And you're going to having to get number 5, which is a player that I love. It's Garrett Wilson, but the situation really, really stresses me out. And it's Philadelphia. And they draft him 119, the second wide receiver taken. And please, Philadelphia, please do not take a wide receiver this draft. For one, Devontae Smith's reason. I love Devontae Smith, and I want him to just succeed being the alpha. And you can fill in, you can throw in a round 2 or 3 wide receiver if you want, but not one of these, not Jamison Williams, Wilson, London, or Burks, or even Pickens. Stay away from those, please, 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 Philadelphia. Do not take one, because I do not want Jalen Hurts to ruin a quarterback for his rookie year. And ruin a wide receiver for his rookie year. And I feel like that's what's going to happen if you're going to have a ton of Devontae Smith shares or targets, and then you're going to have what's left over with Dallas Goedert. Miles Sanders doesn't really even catch the ball anymore, because it's Jalen Hurts just runs. Yeah, he's like a panic and run. So, number 6, and it's always going to be hard to figure out where that first quarterback gets taken off the board. The first quarterback that I've had since day 1 of this draft class, I don't remember even when I posted that, maybe 2 months ago. Maybe it was even longer, and it was no one else's quarterback 1, but I think it's going to be everyone's quarterback 1 by the time it's all said and done. And it's Malik Willis. He goes to Detroit, though. Not the ideal situation. I'd rather have him go to Atlanta, Carolina, Pittsburgh, somewhere else than Detroit. Detroit does draft a wide receiver in the second round, which is going to be nice. Nice little pairing for him. But Malik Willis going to Detroit, and plus I don't want him to be in my division, because I think Malik Willis has one of the highest ceilings, potentially. Like, he has Trey Lance had a really high potential ceiling and bust. And I feel like Malik Willis has a very similar, like, he could be really high, like, he could be one of the top 5 dynasty quarterbacks. You could also see him be relatively, like, I would say Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts is still a good fantasy quarterback. Worse than that, like, just a horrible, like, he has times, because Liberty is of course, a lesser, little bit smaller, bigger, is a little bit smaller school. And so being at a bigger level is what I'm trying to say. Man, it's like I had a stroke there for a second. You could just see the inconsistencies. You could see the bright moments, and then you could see moments where you just want to pull out your hair from Malik Willis. But I love that those bright moments. Those bright moments shine very, very well. Number 7 is the number 1 wide receiver that was drafted in this NFL mock draft. And a lot of mock drafts have him going number 1, or going the first wide receiver taken off the board. It is Drake London at 111. And why is he number 7 here? It's because he goes to Washington. They got Terry McLaurin. Yes, Carson Wentz is going to is the Commanders' quarterback, but still, Terry McLaurin is the alpha there. Drake London will be a wonderful beta and a wonderful big type body wide receiver, but we really haven't seen that succeed at the Washington level. And so it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of buck those trends and be a successful big-bodied wide receiver. I mean, you even think of Dotson, who came out of TCU, went to Washington. I know that was some years back, but I think that was 6 years back now. Just big-bodied wide receivers that go to Washington seem to have really failed. And so we'll see if Ron Rivera can, throw some different packages in there and really open up that offense. But you didn't really even see it when if you saw Terry McLaurin, a ton of targets. And then you saw a lot of targets to J.D. McKissick, who is back, not going to Buffalo, he's back. And now you have Antonio Gibson. And that's really their offense. I don't see, Curtis Samuel, I know they had plans for him. Didn't really come to fruition because of his injuries. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Drake London you have to take because of talent here. But Washington, another team that I don't really want taking a wide receiver. It's just because of the situation. Even the talent around, like Terry McLaurin is going to be the alpha there, and I think he demands a lot of targets. And Terry McLaurin is a really, really good wide receiver. It's like if you told me Drake London goes to Carolina. That's another team that I'd be like, well, they have DJ Moore being the alpha, they have Robbie Anderson, they have Terrace Marshall. Like, I don't want another wide receiver, and they have CMC, of course, coming back. So it's like there's some teams I'm just like, stay away from the wide receivers. Like, have Drake London get drafted by Houston, have him get drafted by the Saints, have him get drafted by Detroit. Have them get drafted even by the Jaguars, who seem to spend $8 million on every single wide receiver they possibly can. Have them get drafted by Chicago. Have them get drafted by Cleveland. Have them get drafted by New England. I think that's like 8, 9, 10 teams that I just mentioned that I would rather have over Washington. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you agree. Number 8, we're going not back to quarterback yet. I had these listed in their draft order. So number 8, Malik Willis / Jared Goff, maybe for like a game or two. Maybe 3 games for Jared Goff. Get a wide receiver at the 34th overall pick in the second round is George Pickens, and he is in that second-tiered wide receivers. And I think George Pickens is a really good wide receiver that potentially could have the upside of being the number 1 wide receiver in this class. The biggest issue is he had that ACL injury. He was the number 1 wide receiver going into the 2021 college football season. So he has that high upside. I think we are sleeping on him a little bit, and it's hard because the wide receivers from like 1 to 5-ish. There's not a ton difference, but then we start hitting these drop-offs. Same for the running backs. 1 and 2 have seemed to concrete themselves. 3 is a very big question mark, and then 4 and on are really lumped together. It's going to be a lot on draft capital, a ton on draft capital, and then some of it on landing spot as well, because they're so close to each other, and you see a lot of these probably 2-down running backs or a lot of these pass-catching running backs, which we'll get to probably tomorrow, because that's where we're going to see a lot of these guys go. Number 9 is going to be Desmond Ridder, drafted 12th overall, 112, and so he goes to Pittsburgh. Him and Matt Corral in this situation, and I'm just going to talk to you about Matt Corral because he's number 10, and he went to Carolina in this situation, 106, drafted 6 picks ahead. I look at Desmond Ridder, I look at Matt Corral, and they're very, 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 very close in this situation. Matt Corral, I think, is going to... They both have great situations in Carolina and Pittsburgh, so I'm going to go with the slightly more mobile quarterback, and not only to think that Pittsburgh has Najee Harris. They have Chase Claypool. They have Deontay Johnson. They have another wide receiver that they actually drafted in the second round that I actually really like as well. We'll get that to tomorrow's video. And so Desmond Ridder gets that little bump up, and Matt Corral is going to be 10th, and he goes to Carolina, drafted 6 picks ahead. I just want that little bit more mobility, a lot more mobility from Desmond Ridder that's going to tilt that scales, and this is really what it's going to be. If draft capital's close, and the situation's close, Desmond Ridder is why do I keep saying Ridder? Desmond Ritter. I keep saying it. I told you I was going to say it yesterday, and I did it again. Desmond Ritter is going to do it again. He's gonna just do a little jump over Matt Corral. Number 11, and we got this one and the next one. It's gonna be Chris Olave. He goes to the Jets. What is there to say? Yeah, Zach Wilson is going to have a lot to Elijah Moore. Chris Olave is going to be another good one. It's think Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave in college. You're going to basically have the same thing. I think Elijah Moore's going to be more talented. I think he's the better wide receiver. But I think Chris Olave can be a solid wide receiver too at the next level. And so with that being said, I think it's going to rely a lot on Zach Wilson. But I trust in Zach Wilson. I think he's going to make a step up. I mean, he can't make you a step down because it was pretty bad. Him and Trevor Lawrence got some work to do. So number 12, Jahan Dotson. He goes to the Saints, middle of the second round, 2.49. Saints is a really good spot for him. Michael Thomas is getting closer to that 30 years old. Jameis Winston back. You have Alvin Kamara. I mean, you don't have many other options. You have Hardy in there. You're really lacking options for the Saints targets here. And so I like Jahan Dotson here at the end of the first round in Superflex. Maybe a spot or two higher than I would normally have him, but he has a really good spot hey, it's where I would rather have some of these other wide receivers that got drafted before him, but that's about it. I mean, you can't have perfection in the NFL draft. There's always going to be something that makes you just go, why did that NFL team do it? So tomorrow, we're going to go through 13 through 24, and then I'm not sure. Make a comment below what would you like to see next. All right? Peace out. Take care.
Now turn up.